If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page and I will be happy to answer the question for you. Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, and this is Talking with Dr. Donna. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I'm happy that you're here with me. We are here to do another episode to hopefully help you to become better. My goal is to talk about generational health because we want to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. So this show is for you. And hopefully you will learn something every single week that will help you be better, help your family be better, and help to build generational health. As you know, we're here on YouTube Live. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it if you would go ahead and take a moment right now to subscribe to my channel so that you know every time I go live. Hit that little bell icon right next to that. And that way you know when I go live every single Thursday. All right. Thank you so much for being here. You know what we always have to do. We're going to talk about a little bit last week. I hope you joined in. If you did not see the episode last week with Dr. Peterson, I hope that you will go back and look at that episode about gut health. How to keep your butt alive. That we're going to continue. We're going to continue that conversation tonight about staying alive. Now, we know that we are in the middle of a pandemic. We are coming on the other side, hopefully, of this pandemic. And many of you may have been putting so much effort and focus and energy into the pandemic that there may have been some things that you did not take care of during this past year and a half that we have been focusing on coronavirus. And tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things that you may not have paid attention to, but is going to help you stay alive. So that's why we're talking about staying alive tonight. We know that you made it through the pandemic, but what about the other aspects of your health? Have you been paying attention to that as well? So let's get started first off with some COVID updates. I always like to let you know we're not finished. We're not out of COVID. I think this week I've probably heard of 5 people within my own circle who have tested positive with symptoms from coronavirus. So we know that we are not out of the woods just yet. In Alameda County, you can see we have over almost 117,000 cases of coronavirus. We have had over 1,300 deaths. That's 1,300 people who are no longer with their families and their friends and their loved ones. So it's super important that you continue to stay vigilant. Again, our highest cases are in our 18 to 30-year-old age group. And we want to make sure that you, if you're out there and you're young and you're hanging out, that you try to keep yourself safe because you are the highest risk group. We are looking at our case data, and let's look at some of our death data. We've looked at that, and now let's look at vaccines, right? So we want to make sure one of the good things about this time is that we now have a vaccine. We have a vaccine that can help you to decrease your risk of getting severe COVID. Now, we've talked a lot about this last year. Remember, the purpose of the vaccine is not to prevent you from getting coronavirus at all, okay? The purpose of the vaccine is that if you are exposed to the virus, that it will limit your risk of getting infected so bad, right, and sick so severely that you have to go to the hospital and be admitted or get admitted to the intensive care unit or die. Right? So the vaccine is important. It serves a purpose. No, it's not 100% effective. It will not 100% of the time prevent you from getting the disease, But I think I will take my chances. If I get the disease and the vaccine is going to help prevent me from getting super sick or dying, I'm going to take that chance because I don't want to die. I have a lot to live for. I have young kids, and I know you have a lot to live for out there too. So I want you to really think about that. When we look at our data for vaccine, we see that even though the highest cases are in our 18 to 30-year-old age group, they are the lowest vaccinated. And even though our deaths are highest in the African American and Latinx communities, our vaccination rates are the lowest. Come on, folks. Come on, y'all. We talk about this every week. Let's not be a statistic. Let's not be in that number of the 1,300 who have lost their lives to this virus. We have a vaccine. We have a vaccine that's also right now going to the FDA for the 5 to 11-year-old age group on the 26th of this month. So I anticipate in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some information about that 5 to 11-year-old vaccine and to see if we're able to start vaccinating our younger kids. And we'll talk about that vaccine once we have information on their data. We're going to kind of talk about that vaccine and help you make the best decision for your family and for your children. All right, let's talk also a little bit about a study that came out just this week that talked about booster and whether or not if you have a booster shot, what should you get? Now, if you got vaccinated here at True Vine Ministries, we gave the J&J vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And you know we've been talking about booster shots. If you have the Moderna vaccine, you should get the Moderna booster shot. If you got the Pfizer vaccine, you should get the Pfizer booster shot. And if you got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, well, which shot should you get? Well, a study just came out that said if you got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it's probably going to react better for you if you get either the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine as your booster shot. And many studies are showing that the Moderna vaccine has a little bit higher rate of preventing disease than the Pfizer vaccine. So maybe if you have Johnson & Johnson and you're thinking about getting your booster shot, you want to consider whether the Moderna vaccine is going to be a good alternative for you to get your third and final booster dose. All right, let's talk a little bit about staying alive. Now, last week we introduced the food of the month, right? And I hope you remembered. We are doing the food of the month, and our food of the month this month is, drum roll, you all know it's kale. So hopefully you all have been experimenting with kale. I know that I have been doing lots more kale salads. Today, I'm going to post a picture after this. Today, I did this great flatbread pizza that had like an apricot jam. It had kale. It had roasted red bell peppers and caramelized onions. Yummy, yummy, yummy. So if you are experimenting with kale, go ahead and drop a picture on my Facebook page and let me know how you ate kale, what you're doing with your recipes. Shout out to Sanji Walker, who put a picture of a kale Caesar salad on the page today. Good job, Sanji, getting your kale in. So remember to get your kale in for this month. That's our food of the month. All right, so Black folks, we are talking to you tonight about staying alive. What percentage of the population do you think that we are? I know that we have lots of people in the United States, and we want to look at the percentage of Black people in our population. Even though there are a number of us, we only account for about 13% of the total U.S. population. And that's striking, though, when you think about our disease processes, because even though we're only 13% of the total population, we account for almost 30% of chronic kidney disease. We're going to be talking about chronic kidney disease a little bit later, but we account for a disproportionate number of diseases, even though we're only 13% of the population. Now, last week we talked about top 5 U.S. causes of death. We're going to put that back up for you so you can see the top 5 leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, unintentional injuries, chronic lower respiratory diseases, and stroke. That's all causes of death in the United States. But let's take a look at the top leading causes of death in the Black community. That looks a little different. So I'm going to just slow down on this slide because I want you to see it and I want you to pay attention, because the top table are females and the bottom table are males. But they have things in common. The number one cause of death in blacks mirrors the number one cause across the United States. That's heart disease. The number two cause in both females, black females and black males, is cancer. And now there's a little bit of divergence or difference when it comes for strokes, because strokes is the number three cause of death for black females, but accidents are the number three cause of death in black males. And then number four for black males is stroke, whereas for females it's diabetes, followed by Alzheimer's for females, and finally, to round out the disease in black males, is diabetes. But we know heart disease, cancer, stroke, and diabetes is in common in both male and female top 5 causes of death. And as I mentioned last week, the majority of our diseases, heart disease, cancer, strokes, can be impacted by your diet. What you eat is important. So when we look at our food plate, it tells you the importance of our diet. Now, I know you all have probably seen this food plate before, and you're all probably like, oh yeah, I've seen it. But there's a couple of things that I want to point out to you on this plate. Number one is half of your food should be fruits and vegetables. I hope you can see that. The green vegetables, the red fruits, together combine to make up half of your plate. Now that's probably not how most of us eat, right? Most of us eat probably the majority or half of our plate is probably our protein and then our starch, right? And that's probably the majority of our plate, and a little bit of vegetables and maybe fruit. But we want that swapped, right? Because cardiovascular disease or heart disease, cancer, and stroke all have a component of us eating healthy. And we know multiple studies after study has been talking about the importance of a plant-based diet, right? Even Dr. Peterson last week talked and alluded to, the story of Daniel in the Bible eating the food from the earth, right? So we know that plants and seeds are healthy for us. I'm not telling you to not eat meat, okay? Meat industry, don't come after talking with Dr. Donna. I'm not saying we can't eat meat. I'm not saying we can't eat bread. What I am saying, though, is that we really want to think about the proportion of meat and breads that we are eating. So I kind of went on this health journey in the beginning of the summer. Every year in June, I get my annual physical. That's my birthday month, and so it's another year of staying alive. I celebrate by going to see my doctor. And this past June, when I went to go see my doctor, I found that my body was completely out of whack. Blame it on COVID, blame it on inactivity, blame it on just not really paying attention to what I was doing. But your body keeps score, right? Your body understands what it's doing, whether you're paying attention to it or not. So one of the things that we talked about was my weight. Oh, I know, you don't want to hear it. Well, I'm going to talk to you about that today. Your weight is important. Your weight is important. So your weight, of course, correlates to what you eat. So I have started trying to incorporate more meatless, no meat, that means no meat, into my meals. So that a couple of days a week, I try a couple of days for all my meals, I try not to have meat. And believe it or not, I'm telling you, I feel better. I feel lighter. I have more energy. I'm not as irritable. Dr. Peterson would be happy to know that my colon is working better. I won't become too TMI on you tonight, but my colon is working better. by eating more vegetables and more fruits, and not having every single one of my meals centered around a meat protein, but using other types of protein. So the other types of foods on this plate, a healthy protein, right? So lean meats. If you're going to have a meat, make it a lean meat, okay? But there are other sources of proteins as well. So beans are a great source of protein. I've been doing a lot of beans. Nuts, I've been doing, eating a lot of like peanut butter or nut butter, like sun butter, I like too. And then grains, that's a whole kind of a quarter of your plate. That's healthy whole grains. And it's really important that you look at whether or not your grains are whole grains. There's a lot of tricks out there, right? The food industry is super smart. They're going to say things that have grains in them or a portion of it is grain. You want whole grains. So read your ingredients. And maybe we'll do a little grocery shopping episode where we go to the store, we look at some of the products, and so we can help you guys figure out how to eat healthy. And then finally, in the sort of edges, healthy oils, you know, for your salads, you want to put some healthy oil in there, olive oil, those things are good. And you really want to try to drink water, okay, more than anything else. Now, if you remember, the old dairy plate had a glass of milk there, right? The old eating plate. Now we've replaced that milk with water. Why? Because we want to make sure that you understand that you don't have to have the dairy from your milk, right? You can get dairy from other things. We're going to talk a little bit about calcium towards the end of the show, but you do want to make sure that you do have calcium in your diet. I have switched from regular milk years ago. I switched from regular milk to almond milk, right? Because almond milk actually is higher in calcium and it's a nut versus having a dairy product. Many of us, you know, you're lactose intolerant. You know what happens when you get a little milk. So we have to think about how we can get calcium in our diet in other ways. So let's look at the effect of having a poor diet on obesity in our community. So the health of our black population, here we go. Almost 40% of our men over the age of 20 are obese. And almost 56%, over half of our women over the age of 20 are obese. Obesity, foods, deals, right? The food that we eat all impact those top 5 causes of death: heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes. All of it has this risk factor of obesity, starting with what we eat. Let's look at some our cancer statistics. And you know what, this is kind of a heavy topic. I know you guys are like, where's the happiness? Where's the joy? I'm trying to get you all to stay alive out here, okay? So blacks collectively have the highest death rate and the shortest survival of any ethnic or racial group in the United States for most cancers. So we talked about this also last week in our cancers. Listen, we're dying. We're dying out here from cancer, right? It's the number 2 cause of death in our black females. We got to take it seriously, okay? So there's things and screenings that maybe you did not get done during this past year in the pandemic. Maybe, ladies, you did not get your mammogram. Well, this is the time right now today to make it on your to-do list for tomorrow to call and schedule that mammogram. Maybe you haven't had your screening for cervical cancer, ladies. This is the time to get your cervical cancer test. Men, maybe you're not getting that screen for prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is, I believe, the number 2 cause of death in black men. So let's get that prostate cancer screening done. Contact your doctor and say, hey, you know, it's probably been a couple years because I have been dealing with the pandemic. Many of the hospitals weren't doing what they needed to do because it was difficult to bring people in. And as a result, did not get a lot of maintenance, health maintenance. That's what we call it. We call it health maintenance. And I want you to pay attention to your health maintenance screenings for the different types of cancers. Now, as you know, I work for a managed care plan. I work for Alameda Alliance. And we are really focusing in right now because we see the disparities in the cancer screening rates this year as opposed to years prior. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were in the midst of a pandemic. But now we're coming out of it, and I want you guys to pay attention to staying alive. And a part of staying alive is getting your screenings performed. Your mammogram, cervical cancer screening, and prostate cancer screening if you're a male. One of the things that you can do for yourself, ladies, is your self breast exam. I want to encourage you that every single month that you examine your breasts. As long as you're alive, you are at risk for breast cancer. I have told many, many people this story, but my mother was 75 years old when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she found the cancer herself by doing a self breast exam. So there's no age where you can feel like you're out of the woods of getting breast cancer. It's important, as long as you have breasts and as long as you are alive, to do self breast exams every month. You want to make sure that there's space between when your menstrual cycle is, if you still have your cycle, and when you do your breast self-exam, because you want to make sure that you can actually press on your breast as hard as possible, because you really want to get down there and feel if you feel anything that's abnormal. And if you do feel something abnormal, that's when you go to your doctor and make sure that they pay attention to you and what you're saying. You know your body better than anybody else. Men, I'm talking to you men out there. Pastor Zach just walked into the studio talking to you out there. You can do a self-exam yourself. Testicular cancer is an important cancer that men can actually examine and feel for themselves. So for ladies, just like we encourage self-breast exams, men, we encourage you to do a testicular exam. Especially for you younger men out there. Testicular cancer is actually the #1 cancer in our young adult males, okay? So that's our self-exam. So you can examine your breast, examine your testicles. Let's look at the leading causes of new cancer. So for male, prostate, and for female, breast, okay? So the #1 cause of cancer, right? The number of cases, there's more men, black men, who get prostate cancer than any other type of cancer. And more black females get breast cancer more than any other type of cancer. That's why it's important to do your screenings, ladies, your self-breast exams, and get your mammograms. And men, it's why it's important to get your prostate examined by a doctor or to do your blood test screening. Even though the #1 causes of cancer are prostate and breast, look at what kills our black community from cancer more than any other type of cancer, and that is lung cancer. Lung cancer, primarily caused by smoking. We're not going to talk about that tonight, but you can best believe that we are going to have a conversation about tobacco, its harm to our community, and what you can do to help make yourself better. All right, so we talked about food, right? We talked about obesity being a risk factor for cancer. We talked about cancer being in the top 5 causes of death. And here it is. What we want to now talk about is some of the benefits, some things that we have in our bodies or we can put in our bodies to be of benefit. So I'm going to tell you a little vitamin D story. Last year, as you know, we were in the pandemic and a lot of us were inside the home. But one of the ways that we get vitamin D is being activated by the sun. So I told you I was going to share with you my personal health journey. So I go to the doctor and I asked my doctor if we can check my vitamin D level. I was feeling a little sluggish. I knew that I hadn't been outside as much as I could or wanted to during the pandemic. And I just wanted to check my vitamin D level. A lot of times, you know, we as healthcare professionals do the broad statistics and we say, Oh, overall, there's really you are low risk for getting vitamin D deficiency. Well, I asked my doc to check anyway, and my doctor said, well, why don't we just put you on supplements? And I said, that's great. I'm happy to take a supplement, but I want to know what my level is anyway. Thank God that I pushed and advocated for vitamin D. Now, you guys think because I'm a doctor that my doctor just gives me everything that I want. No, I have to advocate for myself too, just like you. We all have to be advocates for our own health and pushing and pushing and asking. Squeaky wheel gets oiled in almost every aspect of our life, and that's very true when you're talking to your doctor as well. So my doctor checked my vitamin D level, and my vitamin D level came back at 16, okay? Now, to put that into context and perspective for you, the lowest number for vitamin D is 25. So I was 16. So I was extremely low in vitamin D. Now, had I not checked my level, the supplement that I would have taken would not have been enough to bring me up to a good level for my vitamin D. This is why it's important to check and to not just start taking supplements, because you need to know where you're starting from. If I had taken normal supplements, I wouldn't get the benefits. I would still be low in vitamin D. Thankfully, I checked, got the right amount of supplements, and my vitamin D level is increasing. I'm also going outside more, right? We're opening up a little bit. I'm making sure that every day I get at least 30 good minutes of sunlight to help activate my vitamin D. Now, why do we even need vitamin D? I know there's a lot of talk about vitamin D. Maybe you even heard about at the beginning of COVID, how people were saying vitamin D helps to protect you against coronavirus. Well, in a kind of roundabout way, it does. Vitamin D helps promote healthy bones and teeth. It supports our lung function and our heart health, right? So it helps our immune system, it helps our brain, it helps our nervous system. So in that way, if you have a good level of vitamin D, it really does help to make sure your immune system is as healthy as possible, which is exactly what we need when we're battling an infectious disease. We need our immune systems to be as strong and robust as possible. Cardiovascular health, that's important because we know the #1 cause of death in the United States is what? Cardiovascular or heart disease. So having the vitamin D level normal and as high as possible is going to be good because it supports good health of your heart, your lungs, your brain, nervous system, and immune system. It also helps to regulate your insulin level and helps to make sure that your blood sugar stays normal. That's for people who have diabetes or not have diabetes. Vitamin D is important. And what we're learning more and more about, and their researchers and scientists are studying more about, is how does vitamin D work in helping to prevent cancer? We know that it helps to turn off some of those cancer genes that can cause cancers to start. That's important. If you've been paying attention, you know cancer is important to us. So this is why vitamin D is important. So I'm encouraging you today to think about when you go to your doctor to ask what your vitamin D level is, to start taking a supplement or getting more vitamin D in your diet. So I talked about what are the things that I saw that made me think that I was low in vitamin D. And so many of you may have some of these same symptoms when you think about not having enough vitamin D. Fatigue, oh, that was me all day long. I was tired all the time. Hair loss, not being in the mood to do anything, muscle pain, bone and joint pain. You're not healing as well, and you're getting sick more often than you used to. Some of these are signs of vitamin D deficiency. So I'm encouraging each and every one of you to make sure that you have enough vitamin D in your diet. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about calcium. I mentioned this in the beginning with the food plate and how there used to be a little glass of milk there. And we know that, our food industry, again, they might tag me for this. Oh, but you know, hey, this is what we do, right? That there's lots of hormones in our milk and in our foods. And so there's ways in which we can get the benefits of calcium from things other than dairy products. And so you can see here so many different types of foods. Most of our green leafy vegetables actually have a high amount of calcium. So kale, kale, our food of the month, also has high calcium. You can get it from yogurt, and you can get it from cheeses. You can get it from beans. And I won't tell anyone, don't tell anybody I told you this, but you can also get calcium from ice cream. Did you know that? It's okay. Have some ice cream, and you can say, well, Dr. Donna said I need my calcium, but make it low-fat ice cream, and don't make it every day. Don't have that whole pint of Haagen-Dazs in one sitting, okay? All right. Well, we've talked about a lot of things tonight, and I hope that you have learned something. Primarily, we're talking about staying alive. I want you out there to understand what you can do to help make yourself stay alive. We want to make sure you think about the foods that you're putting into your body. We want to make sure that you get the exercise and sunlight that you need. We want to make sure that you think about what you eat and the proportions in which you eat it in. And we want you to think about how you are taking care of your body overall, right? So remember, our food of the month, kale. I really want to see how you're cooking kale. I really want to see what you're doing out there to liven it up. We're creative. We're creative folks. So I know you're doing some awesome things in the kitchen to get our food alive. So I'm going to go on my YouTube channel. Sorry, I haven't been taking questions. Let's see. I'm going to see if there's any questions out there. If somebody else is on my channel, it can help me see if there's questions. My restream is not pulling up this evening. All right, there we go. I'm going to see if any of you guys have any questions out there. Sorry. I'm moving slow. Moving slowly. Let's see if anybody has any questions out there. All right. Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. I see you out there. Thank you for watching. All right, Juliet, you said you have a question. You're going to type it in? Type in your question and let me know what your question is. All right. Let's see. If I blend the kale instead of chewing it, is it still as effective for my body? Yes, so I mean blending it into like a smoothie, that's perfect. You can blend it into smoothies. You can add it to, you know, one of the things I do, don't tell my family, please don't tell my family. One of the things that I do is I will cook a green leafy vegetable like spinach or kale, and then chop it up really, really finely. I also do this with eggplant. I chop it up really, really finely, and I add it to my sauce, like my sauce when I make lasagna and spaghetti. Don't tell my family, okay? I'm begging you guys, don't tell my family. I put it in there, and then when they're eating the sauce and the spaghetti, they're also getting some vegetables, okay? So those are things, so it still works just as well. Sometimes we have to hide the good food because folks, you know, will have kind of an idea that, oh, I don't like kale because kale is bitter. Well, if I chop it up and put it in a smoothie with some fresh vegetables, then you may not taste the bitterness of the kale, but you still are able to get that good food into your system. All right, let's see. So I hope that helps you, Juliet. Yes, keep blending or eating it raw, however, whatever works for you. Liz, what are the benefits of taking elderberry supplements? You know what, Liz? I am not as familiar with elderberry. I know that lots of people are interested in it and taking it, but I have to say Dr. Don is going to have to take that and get back to you, because I'm not quite sure what are the benefits of elderberry supplements. All right, you like the tip about the eggplant in the sauce? My secret safe? Thank you. My husband is watching, so he probably will never eat my spaghetti again, but it's so good, he can't help it. Any other questions? All right. All right, well, as always, if you have a question, you can go ahead and leave it on my page, and I will come back and get my answer to you. Liz, I will get some information about elderberry and bring that back. I thank you so much for watching tonight. I hope that you have learned something. I hope that there is something that will influence the way you live your life, that will help you make a change for your better health, so that we can build generational health. As always, you have an appointment with your doctor every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do. Excuse me, Talking with Dr. Donna. Take care. If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page, and I will be happy to answer the question for you.